What we're going to look at now is how the cell cycle works and how cells and other organisms reproduce. I have a comic. It says, Marty, I'm just about to divide, but I can't make it back for lunch. Both of us will get back to you. The cellular phone. No? Okay. This is going to have lots of vocabulary and lots of memorization. This might be one of those sections that you want to make flashcards for or whatever. This is going to be a big chunk of your final test before we go to the final exam. The cell cycle. The cell cycle describes how one cell becomes two cells, how cells divide. We need new cells so that we can grow. I already returned it, so she has it upstairs. Thank you, though. So that we can grow, or to replace dead or damaged cells. So all of you are much bigger than you were 5 or 6 years ago. You're growing. Also, even when you stop growing, you're constantly having to replace cells. For example, you shed millions of skin cells each hour. How many of you have ever been on a sunny day, you've seen a sunbeam coming through a window, and in that sunbeam, you've seen a whole bunch of tiny specks of dust floating? The vast majority of that is dead skin from the people you live with. Hashtag nerd trivia. It is. So your skin cells need to be replaced. Every minute, your body produces about 300 million new cells. The number of cells over your lifetime, that's staggering. It's a huge amount. Different types of cells divide at different rates. I have a little infographic for you here. This is from your textbook. Okay? So your brain cells, every 30 to 50 years, they don't replace themselves very fast. This is why brain damage is such a serious issue. Skin cells, every 20 days or so. That's fairly quick. That's why if you scratch yourself, you know that in a short time, scratch is going to be gone, although sometimes scarring can occur. Liver cells every 200 days, red blood cells about every 120 days, stomach lining cells every 2 days, intestinal lining cells every 3 days. So your cells, Trevor, divide at different rates. Every cell goes through 3 main stages. You might want to put a star next to this. I'll absolutely be asking you this on a test. You'll need to memorize this. Stage number 1 is what we call interphase. What letter does that word begin with? I. What number does a capital I in my font look like? Number. It's the first stage. Okay? The second stage is called metaphase. The third stage is called cytokinesis. Cytokinesis. Martin, what letter does the middle stage begin with? M is the middle one. If I was clever, I'd have a dumb way for you to remember that the middle stage starts with an M, but I got nothing. The middle and M, I got whatever. You have to come up with someone your own. Okay? These are the 3 stages. We're going to elaborate each one of these in much more depth. Sorry. Good gosh. I can't even read my own writing. Delete that one. Mitosis, not metaphase. Mitosis. Interphase, mitosis, and cytokinesis. This one is the most complicated. We're going to spend a whole chunk looking at that, at mitosis. I'm sorry about that. Too many knocks on the door. I gave you guys a little diagram in your notes. It has lots of blanks. Here it is. I'm going to zoom in like crazy, and you're going to fill in the blanks. So are you ready? The first blank I'd like you to fill in, come on, there we go. The first blank I'd like you to fill in is this one right here that says interphase, right in the middle of this little half circle right there. And you'll notice this is meant to be most of the circle. Interphase is the longest stage of a cell's life. It lasts the longest. It lasts the longest, okay? It's made up of growth and preparation. So for most of the cell, Matt, it's growing, it's preparing to divide, and it's doing its thing. The brain cell is acting like a brain cell. The heart cell is acting like a heart cell. A skin cell is acting like a skin cell, okay? So that's what goes there. And again, Hannah's the significance of this long, to show that it's most of the circle, is to tell you it's the longest stage of a cell's life. Okay? Near the end of interphase, all of your DNA replicates. So if you want to add that right there. And the reason is the cell mason is getting ready to divide, so it needs 2 complete sets of DNA, one for each new nucleus. Okay? Also at the bottom, continued growth and preparation. Doing its thing. Eyes open, Josh. Head vertical, Josh. Elbows up, Josh. Smile on your face, Josh. Okay. Then we get to mitosis. Mitosis is the process that a cell goes through to get ready to split, to get ready to divide, to get ready to reproduce. That's why it's right before the fork. And then we have 2 complete cells. We have cytokinesis. Cytokinesis. I'm going to zoom back out. Okay? But those are what you should have filled in there. You should have filled in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 little blanks along the way. Is that okay, Matt? Yeah? Let's talk about each one of these in much more detail. Ready, Tensei? Interphase. This is the longest stage. The cell happily does its job, whatever that job might be. For example, stomach cells make and release stomach acid. Whatever job, Brian, it's supposed to do, it's plugging away. And it can have different lifespans. You saw all the different times that cells divide on that earlier graphic. It approximately doubles in size. And then right near the end of interphase, DNA is duplicated. DNA is duplicated at the end of interphase. Oh, also, some organelles are duplicated. Some of those small ER ribos, some of those are duplicated. But I'm not going to go into a big song and dance about that. I'm not going to ask you which ones or anything. We're just focused on the broader. Okay? So interphase, the longest stage, cell's doing its thing. What's the cell doing? Doing its job, growing and getting ready to divide, replicating the DNA. Mitosis, very short. Mitosis is the division of the chromosomes and the nucleus. It's still one cell. It hasn't divided yet, Martin, but at the end of mitosis, you'll have one cell with two identical nuclei. Then all they have to do is, and you got two cells. What do they have to do? And you got two cells. What do they have to do? And you got two cells. That sound effect is cytokinesis. It's also very short. It's the actual division of the cell, where now each nucleus goes off and has its own cell. We're going to go into even more detail in just a second here, but what stage of the cell cycle does that right there describe? Interphase, mitosis, or cytokinesis? I'm going to disagree. Cytokinesis is not right because it is not two separate cells yet, is it? No. This is the very end of mitosis. In fact, we're going to find there are 4 stages in mitosis that we're going to memorize as well. That's the last one. It's called the telophase, where you have two identical nuclei. They've moved apart. All that has to happen now, Brady, is cytokinesis. Interphase. What happens? Cell does its job and approximately doubles in size. I know I already said that, but we're going to repeat ourselves. And the cell makes extra copies of small organelles. What are the organelles? Those are those small parts of the cell that you labeled on that diagram. Which ones are copied? I'd have to look that up. I'm not a biologist, and it's not part of the Science 9 curriculum, so I've never memorized them. Matt, you going to make it? That's a long blink. And then during the end of the interphase stage, the DNA inside the cell makes copies of itself. And we call this process replication. We say the DNA replicates. So the cell temporarily has 2 complete sets of DNA. How does the copying occur? Well, the DNA molecule unwinds almost like unzipping a jacket. Remember that double helix? The bonds that are linking the base pairs together break, and so, well, you get something like this, okay? The DNA molecule normally is joined. There's an enzyme that comes along and it splits the DNA up, and then you only need half of the DNA to form another DNA molecule, because if you have a T, you know an A is going to join it. If you have a C, you know a G is going to join it. And so you get 2 new identical strands of DNA produced. Is that okay, Maddie? It says, homework part 1, reading check page 155 orally, DNA replication in notes. Can you open your textbooks, please, to page 155? We're going to go through these together in class. So I have here DNA replication. This is in your notes, yeah? So DNA replication means copying. Come on. There we go. DNA replication means copying. So if you have a piece of DNA that looks like that and it splits down the middle, so on one side you'll get an A, C, A, G, C. Well, what's going to fit with the A? Sorry? Yeah. And over on the right-hand side, the T that split off, what's it going to bond with? An A, and that's how you're going to get 2 chunks of identical DNA, AT, AT. This C is going to go with a G, this G is going to bond with a C. fill in the rest as you go. And that's how you can get identical strands of DNA. That's one of the advantages with the fact that they pair up and that you can split the ladder up. Is the DNA in the two new daughter cells the same or different as the parent DNA? It is. It's identical. Okay. Dude, mitosis starts in 5 minutes. I can't believe you're not condensed yet. Mitosis is the process where we get the DNA from a long, all unwound out strand into chromosomes, into splitting up. This is the tricky stage. There are 4 stages in mitosis, and you're going to need to memorize those 4 as well. What are the 4 stages? They kind of make some sense. So I have here a little slide, and I wrote, can you figure out which step must come first, which step must come second? Try to put them in order using logic. Let me zoom in here a little bit. I think I can go this big. Okay. So we start out, first thing we have to do is get the DNA organized. Did I give you this diagram in your picture as well? This is step 1 right here, because if the DNA was all spaghettified, all tangled up, it's going to be really, really tough to duplicate it. So they form chromosomes, and you'll notice, Brian, the chromosomes look kind of symmetrical. We've already duplicated the DNA. Each chromosome has 2 sets of DNA, and it's going to split right along there. The left-hand set and the right-hand set are going to go into 2 different nucleuses, 2 different nuclei. Is that all right? Now what? We need to get them organized. So the next thing that we do is we line them all up along the center right here. And the reason is that's going to make it nice and easy to split. In fact, we'll take half of them up and half of them down. Which one looks like the split where we're taking half of them up and half of them down? Top right or bottom left? Okay. Is that okay, Carter? Yep. And then eventually we have 2 complete sets of DNA. We have 2 complete nuclei. We still are in 1 cell. That's step 4. Put your pencils down. I got a video to show you. So the first phase of mitosis is called the prophase. What letter does prophase begin with? P. And so what I have here is PR, prophase, prepare to divide. I think you guys have some blanks to fill in, but I left that there because I wanted the colored P's. This is how we always remember it. Prophase, prepare to divide. The chromosomes and the cells preparing to divide. Note, chromosomes are already duplicated. In the early part of prophase, the chromosomes condense and form. And then we have what are called spindle fibers, those long spiderwebby things that you saw in the video. Later part of prophase, the chromosomes attach to the spindle fibers. Got some pictures for you. Okay, so if you were looking at a cell through a microscope and you saw something like this, you'd say, oh, This is the prophase stage. We can even, Ibrahim, be more specific. This is an actual picture of a slide under a microscope. This is early prophase. You can start to see that instead of the DNA being all spread out like it is over in this cell, it started to clump together. And then here you can see those chromosome shapes, those bow tie shapes. This is late prophase. Metaphase. Chromosomes line up in the middle of the cell. Prophase, prepare to divide. Metaphase, chromosomes line up in the middle of the cell.